I know we're knee deep in football offseason talk, but there's been a lot of basketball going on here recently. So let's get at it.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network's Luke Robinson, that's me, and Alabama soon-to-be internet legend Michael Southern, that's him. He's with me today as Jimmy Stein is unavailable, and, I said, let's talk some basketball. Let's get the authority. Michael, Asian Jimmy Southern, as you all know him. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. I want to thank you every day for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. And thanks, everybody, for making this your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. We are excited to talk some basketball, and I'm glad that the universe gave us a reason to talk some basketball because Alabama's SEC slate was unveiled. Now, this is a good move by the basketball powers that be, if you ask me, because it gets us talking about it, but it doesn't. It's like they give us little nibbles of information. So I kind of like that. That's how football does it now. They'll say, oh, here's your opponents. We're not going to tell you when you play them until later on. And I think that's good for basketball to do that. Michael, what'd you think about the slate when it was unveiled?
So, when it came out, I looked at it quickly because I was at work. I didn't really get a chance to take a look at it until here about 30 minutes ago. With the three teams that you have the home and away, or I guess you can say the home and home with, basically all Alabama's done is you have swapped Kentucky for Tennessee. The only downside of that is Tennessee. They haven't beaten them since 2022, so they seem to be a matchup issue for Alabama right now. But overall, beyond that, if I look at the rest of the away games, I mean, I kind of like it. So you're at Auburn, which is tough. You're at Tennessee because that's your home and home. You're going to be at Florida, which is going to either be a top three, top two, maybe the number one ranked team. So that's going to be tough. But then the rest of the slate seems manageable. But remember, last year this team did really well on the road and struggled at home. So they only lost 2 on the road, but lost 3 at home. So that's going to be a concern about there. They got to defend home court advantage in the SEC. But I do kind of like it. I'm very curious to see how we match up against Tennessee this year. They have been a thorn in our side now since after 2022.
They lost a lot, and Zakai Ziegler couldn't get that 45th year of eligibility he was looking for.
I know. Thank goodness.
But, I love the slate, too. I think it probably couldn't have worked out much better. You got Kentucky one time. You got them at home. And look, people are going to be mad at me for being sort of a Chicken Little here, but it just about doesn't matter where you play Florida next year. So I'd rather just play them on the road, honestly. Because if we're going to lose to them, let's lose to them on the road, and let's get Texas at home. I don't even know, man. I can't remember if we've played Texas in Tuscaloosa before. I know we played them in Birmingham because I went to it.
Yeah, that's right. During the Avery Johnson era, we played it. I can't remember if that was the Vulcan Classic or if they had already changed it to CM Newton Classic, but I have to go look that one up. That's a good point. I can't remember Texas being in Coleman during the times that I've watched Alabama basketball. So you're right, it's been in Birmingham. And like you said, just like the NFL schedule, you know who you're going to play, but you don't know when you're going to play them. So obviously how these games stack up is going to be crucial. Remember last year, the SEC office didn't do Alabama any favors with that finishing, I don't know, just that murderer's row. Remember, we joked about their last 6, games in the SEC would have been tougher if you were to win the national championship when all the seed lines held. I mean, the last 3 games, you're at Tennessee, you host Florida, and then you go to Auburn. So now, in hindsight, realistically, Alabama should have won 2 out of those 3. They had Tennessee beat dead to rights and let it get away in 35 seconds. Florida, not so much. But again, it's going to be very curious how they line them up. I would imagine the Auburn game, we're going to go to Auburn first, and then Auburn, the return trip will be one of the games. It would be great if it's the last game of the regular season. That would be a lot of fun. I remember it's been a while since we've had that with Auburn in Tuscaloosa.
I think that would make the most sense. And I suspect that, TV will probably have something to say about this, is my guess. I mean, they'll probably never admit that, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if it did. And I mean, Alabama, Auburn, and I'll get into this in a second with this ACC-SEC thing that is still bothering me right now.
Same here.
It's just so sad, but we'll get to that in a second. But overall, again, just to reemphasize and reiterate what the games are. The away games are Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Vandy. Now, look, Tennessee has been our bugaboo. We get it, okay? But we did have them last year, so it's not impossible to beat the guys. We just got to go do it. Florida is going to be tough to beat. I don't care if you play them on the moon, and therefore I'm fine playing them in Florida because I feel like, honestly, and I know I sound Chicken Littleish, but I feel like that up because that's a loss. I mean, that they're going to be good, and they added somebody who's 7'9". That's a problem. I'm not being facetious. 7'9". Auburn on the road, well, we beat them there last year. Georgia on the road, very manageable. Although it is ironic that we were the only team Georgia beat in the SEC a few years ago.
Oh yeah, 2022.
Yeah, in Athens. At LSU, we'll talk about something you posted today. LSU's been sort of fun for us a lot of times. At Vandy, hey, look, I always like a road trip at Vandy because it's easy to go to it. And I'm pro playing the Commodores on the road. I know it's a funky gym, and it's it can be a house of horrors sometimes, but I think Alabama's held their own in there. We've even won an SEC tournament in there before. It was in the 90s, but hey, still counts.
So yeah, I think the one good thing with Nate Oates is he's pretty much ended that Vanderbilt Memorial Gymnasium curse. So he's done quite well when we've gone to Vanderbilt. And you're right, if that's a Saturday trip, if Alabama plays Vanderbilt on a Saturday at Vanderbilt, you'll have a very pro Alabama crowd because that's an easy trip. You'll get all the people from North Alabama. There's a huge Huntsville contingency that will go up there for that. In 24 when we played up there on that Saturday, I went up there. It almost felt like a home court advantage. Like one end of the court was literally about 80% Alabama fans, and I was sitting on the baseline side, and we had a pretty good crowd on our side for Alabama. So. I hope that's a Saturday game because if it's a Saturday, I'm going to try to go up there because it's an easy trip and you'll have a good partisan crowd for Alabama.
Yeah, that's another thing is, do you like road games on Saturdays or home games on Saturdays?
Both, but that's a tough one. It depends. So selfishly, Vanderbilt's a nice road trip on a Saturday because it's Nashville. LSU if it's on a Saturday because it's Baton Rouge. If they play, ideally, a Baton Rouge game is if you played LSU about 2 in the afternoon, you could leave that morning, go to the game, have a nice dinner, and still come back that night if you wanted to. So don't want too many of them because obviously you want a lot of your home games on a Saturday, especially I would suspect your Auburn and Tennessee games will be on Saturday for those big home games, and also Kentucky. I'd be very surprised if those three aren't Saturday games for Alabama at home.
Yeah, Kentucky is a no-brainer for a Saturday, if you ask me. I would love for Mississippi State to be on a weeknight because you can just scoot over there and scoot right back.
That's an easy trip.
As long as it's not that dreaded 8 o'clock tip. If it's a 6 o'clock tip, man, there's no problem with that at all. So I can live with that. All right, Michael, we're going to talk about the ACC-SEC Challenge, and we're also going to talk about a video series you're doing that is certainly a lot of fun right after I tell everybody about Monarch Money. Yeah, Monarch Money, they're awesome. You've tried them. You should. If you hadn't, you should. You could be saving money, and they can teach you about it. Look, have you ever checked your bank account and you wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. It gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just another budgeting app. That's crazy. It's a complete financial command center. I don't know why I say command center like that every time, but I can't stop. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. And once again, just for the people in the back, it is Monarch Money. Go check them out. Okay, so the ACC-SEC Challenge was released like Thursday of last week or something. Again, I like putting the news out in tidbits. I hate the matchup, not because I'm anti-Clemson. I don't want any Clemson fans to think We think we're better than you. I mean, we're better than you. We don't think that necessarily. Yeah, we do think that, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? Why Bama Clemson? Of all the matchups, I mean, of all of, I mean, okay, don't give us Duke. Give Florida Duke. Florida won it all. Duke went to the Final Four. Great matchup. I don't know why they're playing in Cameron Indoor when Duke played there last year, but okay. North Carolina, Kentucky, it makes some sense, and on the surface, it's great. But why now? I mean, North Carolina's not going to be great next year. I mean, why not Kentucky, Clemson? That's kind of cool. That's kind of different. And Clemson's been pretty good. And then why not Alabama? I mean, if anything, you could have flip-flopped Clemson and NC State with Auburn and Bama and made it a heck of a lot more interesting.
So I was really hoping that at least, again, there's no guarantee of a return trip, but it would have been nice to have North Carolina back in Coleman. They haven't been here since the 89-90 season. So it would have been very nice. It would have been special to see North Carolina back in here. And plus, you would have had the return of Jaron Stevenson to Coleman. So that would have added a little more juice to it. Yeah, it would have. So I'm like you. I mean, no offense to Clemson. We've had some great games with them. And honestly, they've beaten us more times in some of the years past. But it seems kind of tired, kind of old, kind of stale. Played them a good bit. Something that just doesn't spark the fan base. Look, I mean, again, we're just tired of playing Clemson. So I would have loved to either see North Carolina come back. If we couldn't have gotten North Carolina, I would have been perfectly fine if we could have had a matchup with Louisville. Yes, so when they did this, I was like, please let us at least have Louisville, because you would have had the Adrian Woolley connection. You know, he played at Paul Bryant High School. He played there in Kennesaw State for Coach Petway. Now he's at Louisville. You could at least had that drawn into the storyline. Duke getting to play at home again. Remember, the ESPN has the final say on these matchups, so obviously you can see where the little favoritism is. But again, Duke brings eyeballs. There's no denying that. And it's a sexy matchup. You got the defending national champion, at Duke, a Final Four team last year in Cameron. So I can understand that. But I really would have either liked to see North Carolina and Tuscaloosa. If not North Carolina, then give me Louisville. And honestly, I would take NC State just because of the connection with with the Will Wade. So there's always that good history between Oates and Wade, and that actually would have had a good storyline. I don't know if Auburn would have been fired up to play Clemson. Probably not. But I definitely would have rather preferred either Louisville or NC State.
Are they fired up to play NC State?
That probably not, because again, we have more storyline with NC State because of the head coach than they do. So I'm trying to think what would be a sexy matchup for Auburn, but again, this is Locked On Bama, so we'll let those guys worry about that.
Yeah. I mean, I could have seen. I would have even taken, honestly, Boston College and sort of tie in when Kerry Good tore up his knee up there, or a Doug Flutie tie-in. Even though his football stuff, I would buy it, because the thing about basketball rivalries, unless it's like Kentucky and Louisville, like the cross-state stuff is good for a few games, not many games. And see, we went to Clemson not too long ago, and I think we won at Clemson, didn't we? We went up there several years ago, and then they beat us, of course, last year.
They beat us on a neutral site. They beat us at home. We beat them in the Elite Eight. I have to go back and look, but
I need to go back and look too. But
yeah.
And I said last year, it was 2 years ago, they beat us at home, and
that's correct.
Then we beat them in the Elite Eight. But I know we played them in this. I don't know if it was a home and home, but I know we played them at Clemson. I want to say we won.
Oates. I think in Oates' first year, we lost to either first or second year. We lost to Clemson. I think in a tournament. I don't think it was at Clemson. And I think that was the 2021 season in the non-conference, because I think that year they lost to Clemson, and they lost to Stanford, and they lost to Western Kentucky before they went on the run in the SEC to win everything. But like you're saying, Clemson just doesn't do anything to the fan base to get them all excited now. And you know what? Don't be surprised if that's a Tuesday, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock game. So you're not going to have a crowd there. It's going to be boring as far as crowd excitement. So that's exactly what happened 2 years ago in 23-24.
Yeah. I don't know. I might be muted. I hope not. Am I muted?
You're not.
Okay,
Nope.
good. Because I'm looking at something else and I couldn't find the screen. Okay. So Alabama played Clemson in Greenville, South Carolina, and won 51-50. Oh my God, in 2015-16. Then we played them in Birmingham and
We
lost
lost that game.
the
Yep.
next year. And we played them in Clemson in 08-09, and I thought we won, but we lost 59-66. And we had played them at home the previous year and had lost 61-87. Wow, they have won. Man, our record against them is not very good. We're 5-8 against Clemson.
It's more when someone says Alabama Clemson, what do you think? You think football, you don't think basketball. That's just the facts. That's the truth. So again, not to harp on it, but it sure would have been nice to have Louisville come in here. At least I think the fan base would have been a lot more excited about Louisville.
Well, I know Louisville came in here Gerald Wallace's freshman year, and we blew their
Alabama
doors
tore
off.
them up. Yes.
That was the end of the Denny Crum era, and he looked like he didn't know where he was. I mean, that whole team was terrible. But okay, I want to talk about what you're doing at Tide Hoops History. Is a great follow on Twitter, and you put together, what do you call it, the 20 most
impactful
wins. And number 19 was today. Well, when you're watching this, it'll be yesterday. But it was the Bama LSU game from the COVID year when Bama just lit up LSU. How many threes did we have in total?
SEC record 23.
23 threes. And I'd forgotten how the game started. I remembered like blowing them out. I remembered all the threes. But the way the game started, the announcers were sort of just like getting in their groove of if you've ever done any kind of broadcasting, it takes a minute to sort of get a feel for the game because you want to announce like the game is going. And the announcers were sort of getting in their groove. And then all of a sudden they were like, hey, Alabama hadn't missed a three. What is happening? And they were just bombing. And it was so contagious and fun.
If I remember correctly, I believe the announcers were just like Chris Stewart and Brian Passink. They were doing it remotely because remember, you had a lot of the COVID restrictions then. That game was a lot of fun. And as far as what we're doing, as far as the 20 most impactful wins, it's not in order of like, hey, this is the 20th, this is the 19th. I'm just doing a chronological look at them. You bring up a good point. Maybe at the end, then we can pull out what we think are truly the 5 greatest of the 20. So we're really just going in chronological order. But this one failed because this was what we considered the third game, and it was January in 2021. But John Petty came out on fire. I think you're right. The announcers from ESPN, because they're remote, they didn't quite have the feel for the game yet. But once they saw Alabama at one point, Alabama hit 8 threes in a row, and the game was over. You could tell it from the LSU players. They were like, "Yeah, this is not our night." And Alabama just kept bombing away. You had everybody: Javon Quinterly, Josh Primo, John Petty, Herb Jones. Everyone was knocking them down. That, to me, the reason I said that was one of the most impactful for Coach Oates is because that's the moment, at least for me, and I've heard this from a lot of the people I talk to, and we talk Alabama hoops, is everyone was like, whoa, I think we got something here. That was the oh wow moment. That's the, hey, Alabama basketball has arrived and everybody better pay attention because things are going to be different from this point forward. And that was what we call the oh wow moment during the Nate Oates era. I think most of the fan base after the game, then they understand what the analytics were. They understood what the high efficiency shots were, the layups, the free throws, and the threes. So that was definitely one of the greatest moments in Alabama basketball history as part of this renaissance that Nate Oates has done in the last 6 years.
When we come back, I want to get your thoughts on the new assistant coach and also want to talk a little recruiting. So Bama does have a new assistant coach, and it's sort of gotten drowned out in all the hubbub. I mean, it was just announced the other day, but Chris Fleming is the new basketball assistant coach. He's been with the Portland Trail Blazers, loved the connections to the NBA. I think that's going to help a ton with recruiting. I mean, in the end, that's what these kids want. Like, you can tell them all you can about how much you coached in college, but in the end, they want to know, how do I get to the league? And I think hiring this guy with some big-time NBA connections is a great hire.
So you've got now two assistants. You got Brian Adams and Chris Fleming, both with the NBA connections in the background. Brian Adams, last year handled the defense. Chris Fleming, the expectation is he'll handle the offense. Again, we've talked about this. I'm really interested to see how the offense does this year with someone different than Ryan Pannone, because again, to me, that's a very could be a very impactful loss because the last two seasons were back-to-back historic years for Alabama when it came to offense, and you had the two of the greatest seasons in Alabama history. I mean, two Elite Eights and one Final Four, and you did it on the strength of your offense. Not that the defense was trash by any means, but again, they've made the most headway on the offensive side, not the defensive side. I also like the fact that Fleming has, international connections. You always hear Alabama fans say, "Man, Tennessee always gets those international players. Illinois is nothing but international players. Why can't we get any?" So, very curious to see if anything develops out of that in the next 1 to 2 years. Especially he's got the connections in Germany. Not saying he's going to bring the next Dirk Nowitzki into us to Alabama, but that'd be nice to see if we can get some traction there as well. And remember, during oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I do it so that I try not to interrupt, and then I interrupt even when I'm on mute because people see my mouth moving. They're like, "He's trying to interrupt." I'm gonna give him a lot of credit. Dirk Nowitzki was headed to Kentucky, wasn't he?
I can't remember exactly where he was headed. I do remember the funny Auburn story that Charles Barkley and them played against him when they were on the Dream Team, and they
Yeah,
were having a practice game with him. And I think Dirk was like a 18-year-old for the German team or whatever, and Charles
yeah.
did everything he could to get him to come to Auburn because apparently he was just tearing Scottie Pippen up in the practice game. Not even Scottie Pippen could stop him that game, and Charles was trying to talk him into coming to Auburn. Um, we talked about, the thing about the Saban model in football is Alabama ran their program like an NFL program. Well, what's the attraction for Alabama right now? They run them, Oates runs his program like a modern day NBA team. He's got two NBA assistants. He runs the analytics like you see in the current NBA game. And you know what he's looking for. He's got a certain style of player that he looks for, and he wants the positionless players, and he wants the skill set. He wants people that can dribble, shoot, and pass. He doesn't want someone who can only do one thing. And that's very NBA like, and that attracts a lot of the players. And plus the fact that you're not going to get yelled at if you take an open shot, if it's a 3-pointer or a layup. I'm sure the players like that as well.
I'm sure they do too. All right, Caleb Holt. He is transferring again.
Yep.
I think he's going to. Is he going to Link Academy? Is that right? Where is he
Was it
going?
Link or Prolific Prep?
Prolific Prep.
Yeah, I think it's Prolific Prep.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
that's my fault. But yeah, so there was an update on 3 recruiting with him that they believe that it'll end up being an Alabama Auburn battle, which I also believe. I'll tell you this: I've gotten to call him before he moved to Georgia this past year. I got to call his last 2 state championship runs, and the kid is out of bounds good. I mean, he's as good a player as I've ever seen come through when I'm watching the AHSA finals. And I got to see DeMarcus Cousins, who was awesome, but funny story about him. He fouled out he scored the first 2 points of the game, didn't score any more against Parker. And then he fouled out and he just sat down on the court because he was so frustrated. And everybody sort of looked around like, y'all know he's 7'1", 280. What are we supposed to do? If he doesn't want to get up, what do we do? Get a forklift? I've seen obviously John Petty. I've seen a lot of really, really good players come through. Caleb Holt, if he ain't the best, he's on the heels of it. He's something special.
He definitely would be a huge monster signing if Alabama could get him. When he went to Georgia, there was a lot of concerns about what kind of influence maybe Georgia or inroads Georgia can make. But again, he's moved again now. So he's moved from Georgia. He's going to go to Prolific Prep. He's got the NIL deal with Adidas. With the revenue sharing kicking in this, next year for the signees, it's going to be very interesting exactly how Alabama kind of doles it out. I know Greg Byrne talked about that on the Crimson Tide podcast today, talking about how, obviously football and men's basketball will get the lion's share. Well, football will get the lion's share. Alabama basketball will get some, and then a little bit left for the other ticketed sports. I mean, if you break it down by percentages, I mean, you're probably talking about anywhere from 2.5 to 3 million allocated for men's basketball, which is funny because if you look at this past season, Alabama was probably paying about 4 to 5 million in NIL. So with the collapse of Yay Alabama back under the athletic department, becoming more of a content-based service, those people that were pushing for donations in just straight into Yeah Alabama as the collective. I predict you're going to see, we already see it. You're going to see new higher Tide Pride fees. You're going to see requests or push for more premium seating. They're going to try to funnel more revenue back into the athletic department directly than what they were doing there. So that 5 million that was going into Yeah Alabama, they're going to try to bring that into the athletic department because you're going to have to, because you just took a $20.5 million expense. You know, they said last fiscal year Alabama lost money overall as an athletic department. There's ways that you can kind of maneuver that around with EBITDA and things like that. So technically, the cash flow may not really be negative, even though it shows it on the books. But you are absorbing a $20.5 million expense directly into that, and that's not including your scholarships. That 20.5 million doesn't cover the cost of scholarships either. So a lot of these schools have their work cut out for them trying to increase the overall revenue to cover this cost. And I'm talking about the big schools. I'm not even thinking about the schools that make 70 million less than your Alabama or Texas A&M, Ohio State. It's going to put a burden on a lot of those schools.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. And you're right about Greg Byrne. He came out and said, this is something else. He said, the House settlement gives us a number, which is 20.5 million. We're going to get in the weeds here a little bit. Every SEC school program, I don't know why he said it that way, has committed to 2.5 million in new scholarship. That gets taken off the 20.5. So that means there's 18 million to work with in revenue share. And we as an institution decide how we will distribute that to our teams. We have taken the approach that it's based off of revenue generation. We think that's a solid approach. I'm 100% on board. There will be somebody out there who will say, no, this is discriminatory towards women or towards the other sports. And frankly, this is the way the world works, though. Football it doesn't just drive the train. It's a whole different vehicle than everything else. Basketball is great. You and I love basketball. I'm doing a basketball podcast in June. I love basketball, but I'm also a realist. Basketball does great to either make a little bit of money or not lose a lot of money. That's right. That's what you're hoping for every year. And football, meanwhile, is where all the bones are buried. So you've got to take care of football first, and that's what you're talking about. The schools that are deciding, like, hey, we're going to focus on softball or women's basketball or men's basketball or whatever. It's going to get really sticky when they realize even at Kentucky football makes more than Kentucky basketball. I mean, that should tell you all you need to know right there.
I think in the case of like your big time programs, like in basketball, obviously Kentucky is Kentucky. They'll have a set amount that they'll figure out what they want to play the top players. But this is where I think they will have a push to help, I don't know, broker or seal true NIL deals. I mean, if you get like an AJ Devanza who's at BYU, if you're Kentucky or Duke and you get him, you can go out there and sign some national NIL deals, and that will greatly supplement whatever you're paying directly from the athletic department. But those athletic departments, the pressure is going to be on. So they're going to get very aggressive on fundraising. They're going to get aggressive on fundraising. They're going to get very aggressive on increased ticket prices and Tide Pride privilege packages just to be able to get those seats. So everyone better get ready for sticker shock if you buy season tickets. You haven't seen it in football this year because this was before the settlement, but you're going to see it next year when they send those renewals out. I expect a pretty hefty hike in football, just like basketball has received this year.
And see, people, that's why you make friends with guys like Michael Southern who already have tickets and then they invite you to go. They're the suckers. Let them be suckers.
Yeah, my section saw a 25% increase on our Tide Pride donation. But yeah, so some sections not quite as much because they were already paying a hefty, like if you have courtside seats, things like that. If you look at it from a percentage factor, nowhere near as much. Kind of where we're at, the section I'm in, because where I'm at, it was a 25% increase, but it varied anywhere from like 5% up to 50%, depending on where you're at, as far as just the Tide Pride donation.
I'll say this, though, that I think it's worth it. And maybe when Oates leaves, whenever that is, maybe it won't be. Maybe we'll fall back a pretty good bit. I don't know. But I'm telling you right now, I know you and I were at the Kentucky game, had a blast. We saw each other at the Auburn game, had a blast. And, Coleman's rocking right now, and it's a lot of fun. I know it's the hangar. I know it's a little dated. I would like a new place too, but in the end, I want to win, and I don't care if they play, in the church parking lot as long as they're winning all the games. So.
Well, I think the other thing you're definitely going to see, because look, Greg Burns is very, very smart. He's a tactician. He's an accountant. He's everything. I know his team has already been, plugging numbers. They were prepared for this House settlement to come through. They already had a plan in place. I think they already have an idea. They probably have already, given the budgets, the prospective budgets to all the teams. They probably already know this. They're always one step ahead of things like this. And I would also suspect, the talk of a new arena, things like that. Let the school go through 1 year. Let them go through 1 year just to see how much it really impacts them financially, paying 20.5 million to players, and then let's see how much they actually raise additional with fundraising through the Crimson Tide Foundation, through Tide Pride, things like that. Then you'll have a better idea. And then I really think probably within 16 to 24 months, you'll have an announcement on an arena. Either yay, we're going to go forward, or no, it's still going to be on the back burner for another 5 to 6 years. You're on mute again.
Oh my God. People think it's a bit. I swear,
Well,
it's so bad. Anywho, all right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And until next time, roll tide, everybody. And thank you, Michael, for joining us.
anytime. Roll Tide.